Good morning and welcome to the Renatus Elevate team call. This is your host, Keely Austin, and as of now we have 4 participants online. Make sure that you reach out to your team. We don't want any ICMs left behind. Today we get to learn from Daine Clark, and we are very fortunate to get to learn from Daine, and the fact that he comes on here with us on Wednesday mornings to share his experience and to train with us is just incredible, and I'm very, very grateful for that. Some of Daine's background before Renatus: he was working 2 jobs. He was working for Apple, and at the time Daine was actually really shy. He was working in the back and not out in the front of the store where you're talking to people. He didn't really like talking to people. And he was also a roofer. He fell into roofing because that's what his dad did. And due to having fair skin and red hair, being in the sun all day was not Daine's cup of tea. At the time, he was barely making ends meet, and he started looking for other income opportunities. After finding Renatus, he plugged into the system and listened to his mentor, and he applied the velocity banking. There's 3 key things right there. I just want to point out the fact that he plugged into the system, listened to his mentor, and applied what he was learning. He used his situation as leverage to get into a duplex, and he lived in one side and rented out the other. Fast forward to today, Daine has now raised over, I think it's $10 million now from investors to lend on various real estate transactions. The secret to that is consistency and frequency. Daine today now has grown his team. He is recognized by our CEO, Bob Snyder, as a key leader. He is a PIT team member, meaning he's a President's Advisory Council member in training. And we are very fortunate to get to learn from him this morning. Good morning, Daine.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you. How are you?
Doing awesome. Good morning, everybody, as well. Thank you again, Keely, for that intro. Man, what a day. And it's already, it's what, 8 o'clock? It's 8:12. And it's already going to be a great day. I can tell you that right now. So let me, let's start off with the normal. I love, if you're new to the call, I love chiming off with how many guests we had in the last 7 days. And usually I get people that already just start doing it. But go ahead and just start. Tell me how many people you had in the last 7 days that came to a meeting, intro, presentation, house tour, one-on-one, I don't care, anything. Even report your goose eggs, as I call them, because an honest person is a wealthy person. And if you're honest with yourself every single week, day in, day out, guess what's going to happen? You know, and we could look at Mr. Michael Huggins all day. And you look at that guy when he first came in, and, you know, thanks guys for chiming in and starting this off. Keep them coming. But you look at Mr. Michael Huggins, #1 in the company, 2 years in a row, maybe 3, we'll see, I don't know. But #1 in the company. And when he first got started, I mean, that dude, he likes to work hard, but I can't remember what the number is, but I want to say it took him 1,000 people to get 5-star. If somebody knows that number, then chime in and let us know. But I know it was a lot. You know what's cool about that is I haven't really met that many 5-stars nowadays that it took that many people to become 5-star. And so it just becomes this battle of who's going to win inside of yourself. Is your fear going to win, or are your goals and dreams going to win? And the only reason fear wins is if your goals and dreams are just a little bit smaller than your fear. So anyway, let's go ahead and let me chime into the chat here. Oh, I got to report my own. Can't forget about that. Oh, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cool. I had 7 in the last. And for me, the number that I care about, is one-on-ones for myself. I know when I was new, I tried to track everything, but now I've just tried to simplify it. And I know that if I'm not doing any one-on-ones, then I'm not doing any invites. And if I'm not Yeah, I'm not getting anybody to meetings. And if I'm not getting anybody into meetings, I'm not doing any invites. Or if I'm not doing follow-ups or one-on-ones, then I'm not a BAM fam. I'm not a BAM famming, booking meetings for meetings, stuff like that. All right, cool. So HS2 had Goose Egg. Tamira Lewis had 2. Sherry Ashby had 2. Rhonda Luft had 1. Great job, guys. Sheena, 3 one-on-ones. Congratulations. LaShawn had 1. Sally had 2. iPhone, not sure who you are, but I like that name. iPhone had a Goose Egg. Watch what happens this next week. Honesty. Again, an honest person is a rich person. Amy had 3. 1 purchased Cash Essentials, 2 one-on-ones. Great job, Amy. Sally had a one-on-one yesterday. Awesome. Joe had 14. Holy crap, man. I've actually seen that. You've been killing it, brother. Great job. Roy had 6. Sandra had 3. Chuck had 0. Jody Durbin. Oh, she reported she reported the 1 on Facebook. Great job, Jody. And thank you, Keely, for managing that. Keely had a Goose Egg. Watch what happens next week. David Hart had 2. Levi had 1 follow-up phone call. And Don Croyle had 1. Great job, everybody. Cool. So also, I love to field a question. Now, I got some training today. I want to tell you guys a little story. But also, I love fielding at least 1 question because, I mean, cumulatively, we probably had 30 or 40 guests and I'm just talking just the people who reported in the last 7 days. So maybe even more, actually. I'm not really a head math guy, but anyway, let's say 20 to 50. I don't know. So we had 20 to 50 guests that came through and saw and are getting introduced to Renatista in the last 7 days. And so let's talk about these people. Let's talk about what's going on. Let's see if there's anything that's got you stumped. And just interrupt me because you know who you are. That you have questions about the faces and the names of the people that are behind these numbers that we report every single week. So again, just interrupt me, ask a question. Who's got you like, oh man, what do I do here? What do I do there? And you know who you are. So go ahead and come off of mute if you're on the phone, *6. If you're on the Zoom app, just click the little mute button or unmute button, I should say. And if we don't have any, then I got some stories. So let's do this in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, cool. I got some stories. So,
hello?
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, you got me. My name's Thais, and I guess I have a question on how to re-engage people who may have been interested in the past, but then they just disappeared off the map.
Okay.
So,
specific, or is this happening a lot?
It just happens a lot. Like people, like they're really interested, and then they just go ghost. So, what do I do?
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing right now is going to be if you've ever seen my 4 boxes that I talk about where we are just detectives. Our goal is just to figure out what they want. There's probably, there could be a lot of different scenarios here. There's probably either something being said, an expectation, like when they show up, again, if this is happening a lot, then something is going to need to change in how it's said, or how expectations are created, or how, what you say to them after the meeting. Because that doesn't happen to me anymore. I don't get people that just ghost like that anymore. Now, it's been a lot of years that I've been able to build up to be the kind of person that people just don't ghost. But so if I were to guess, something's going on that needs to change in what is said. And it's really hard for me to diagnose, and say, oh, here's your problem. But as you look through the people that are ghosting you, do you see a theme? Do you see a theme of maybe a certain part in the process?
I mean, it's
that
usually
they're exiting.
the money part. It's usually the money part.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
They
money
see the
part.
price and
When
they're like, oh my God.
when is the money introduced and how?
Well, now since I've been learning is to try to like get them, bring them into a meeting. I used to mostly use the webinars to engage.
Uh-huh. Okay, cool. So in essence, a lot of these people, if I'm correct, they're going through a webinar series, and eventually, after getting to maybe a certain video, they're just like gone, ghost. See you later. Unlimited access to their voicemail type of thing.
Right.
Okay. How about when you do live?
Well, definitely I get more interest, but then like when I try to contact them, it's just like no answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out, is it the price that scared them away, or, was it me, something that I did?
And are you trying to contact them like after the meeting's over, the next day, like the morning after?
Well, like I try to use the band fam, booking a meeting from a meeting, but most people,
Okay, cool, good.
I'm busy, I don't know, and then I'll contact them a few times after. And then it's just ghost. So it's just like, I don't like to chase. I don't want to feel like I'm chasing someone down,
Yeah. So if again, I can't diagnose exactly what I think might be going on, but sit down on paper and draw out. Here, let me show you this. Let me share my screen here. This is going to help you self-diagnose. So all right, got my screen pulled up here. Let me pull up. Forgot to create a new mastermind for today. So new mastermind, and I'll name it later. All right. So sit down for yourself and draw out. Grab a pen, grab a paper, and draw out what is my system. Okay? And so like if I sit down and draw out my system looks like this. So the first step is intrigue. I build the intrigue and I properly set expectations. Usually the intrigue that I like to drop is what is going to be in the first exposure, right? So number one, I've watched the first exposure. Well, I usually am the one who gives the first exposure here in Salt Lake City, but if I'm doing online stuff, then I've watched it. Not just watched it, but more than once I have watched it. I know the person's presentation. It's really important to know what they're stepping into, because that is the expectation that you need to be creating through your intrigue and invites and stuff like that. And so I'll create intrigue that basically leads to the first exposure. Okay, so I'll just drop, like for example, in my first exposure, I'll talk a little bit about tax savings. In my first exposure, I'll talk about the definition of subject to purchases, using other people's mortgages, things like that. Using other people's money, getting a rental property zero down, paying off a house in a third of the time, stuff like that. So get to know that first exposure. Then you book them. And so in your system, do it like this, where, all right, the most success I've ever had has been getting somebody to, and I'm just drawing out my system here, but a live Thursday night, at our local community there. The second most success I've had is for them, and this is for the first exposure. The second most money that I've made in the funnel, if you will, because I'll either have people go to this one or this one, going down my funnel, is the video, or BIF, if you will, right? The video system of stuff to stuff to stuff over video. And then the most money I've made, so the second exposure, if you will, the most money I've made is either being able to sit down and do a one-on-one consult, if you will, one-on-one follow-up with them, or sending them to a group live follow-up, if you will. But ultimately it's going to end to this one-on-one, because you got to sit down with somebody and put their order in. You got to put their credit cards in, whatever it is. And so the third exposure is usually going to be, again, one of these things. And so for me, I usually, so if I talk about their order status, right? I don't do it here. I don't do it here. I usually will put order in, where we're not funding their account yet. We're not funding it, but we're putting the order in inside of that second exposure. Because I just know that if they don't do it by that time, they are probably not ready. If they haven't seen enough in those first couple of exposures, and again, they haven't bought yet, but this is just like putting an order in doesn't mean that they've made a decision on buying this. Let's do this. I'll even pitch it as like, hey, let's just create your account. Because if they're excited, then they're going to be like, sweet. And I've caught them fast enough in the process where they've seen enough and they're like, yeah, let's do this. Or I'm going to create an opportunity for them to be like, well, I got some questions. I got some concerns. I'm like, sweet. Right. If they don't put their order in, I'm not mad. I'm not, whatever. And so just knowing my system, I feel like, and this is just coming to my mind, and I hope this is being helpful for you. Let me know if the inspiration that came to my mind to talk about this is like nowhere near what might feel like is helpful for you. And just interrupt me. But knowing my system of just being a helper of what's next and what's next and what's next and what's next, it takes the thinking out of it, where I just know wherever they are, by asking them a few questions, wherever they are, I can say, all right, here's what's next. Are you ready? And so from there, more group events, because they gotta feel, and this could be on a Zoom or this could be live, either way, but more group events and some one-on-ones in there. I usually like to try and sit down with somebody one-on-one, like once a week as they're going through this process. And I'll usually meet with somebody a maximum of 3 times one-on-one, maximum. And the story that I'll share today, I think it was only, let's see, 1, 2, yep, 3. Haven't even met with them 3 times yet, and they've already put their credit cards in. So just, again, knowing your system of what's next, it's going to make your prospect it's going to make them feel like what you're doing. The process. You know how to talk to them, things like that. And also, you're going to know, like, okay, when somebody is coming down this process and they're going and they're going and they're going and then they ghost, you're going to know exactly how to diagnose and say, all right, is it the meeting? Is it the meeting that they're going to? Probably not, because there's a lot of money being made in every single meeting that's going on in Renatus. So is it maybe what I say after the meeting? Is it how I do my bam fam, right? And again, I'm not diagnosing here. I'm just saying this is how you're going to find out where most people are exiting. And if there's one thing, if there's one point, if you can go back and say, all right, I got this person to here, and then they're gone, then it might be something that I'm saying in a one-on-one. It might be something that, maybe it might be the meeting, but the reason it's the meeting is I set an improper expectation, right? I had a couple experiences like that just this week, where we're talking to some people. I'm not going to drop any names, but because this person's probably on the call, but set an expectation, sent them down to a meeting, and after the meeting, they actually came back and said, dude, that was a waste of my time, because they were looking for something different because of the expectation and because of the meeting, right? And so you'll know, maybe it's how I'm selling that meeting. Maybe it's right here in how I'm selling that meeting. All right. So I hope this is helpful though. Like, draw this out on paper. I can't tell you how many times I've busted this out and said, all right, what is my system? What does my funnel look like for my business? And just the fact that I have it on paper makes a huge difference for me. And I've written it down. And so I know exactly what is next. So Thais, if you're off of mute already, then great. If not, come back off of mute. Does this feel like this is going to help you diagnose?
Yes, definitely. I know I
did
did
I
not
know
have a system. I know I did not have a system. I did not have one. I'm going to create that today.
Good man.
Definitely. I appreciate that. And that's definitely, I could see where I've made mistakes, not knowing the system, what's next, So thank you.
Good. I'm glad the success gods have inspired me.
Yes, most definitely. I appreciate it.
It came to my head and I was like, I remember thinking like, is this really where we should go? So I'm glad it worked out.
Yes, thank you.
Let me know how it goes. Let me know next week. Report back to us. Let us know you got your system, right? And hopefully everybody on the call is keeping themselves to the same accountability, where they're just like, wait a second, I don't have a system that's written down on paper of what my best thing to do, right? So maybe this could be helpful for more than just yourself. All right, we might have some comments. So let me chime back in here. I think I saw some. I think it's Renee. If they said they didn't have time to watch a 3-minute video, do you call that out and ask them to tell you the real reason or something else? So I would probably, if somebody doesn't have 3 minutes, it takes that long to go to the bathroom. They could watch it while they're going to the bathroom. I would say, so again, back to the system. If in your intrigue phase, right? And so it sounds like it's just in the beginning of your intrigue phase, you're creating intrigue, and maybe you're recognizing some intrigue that might not be intrigue, and they're exiting. They're like, nah, I don't even have 3 minutes for that. Because they, in your detective work, right? Because that's all we are, is detectives. In your detective work, sounds like they're falling off right here. And so you can diagnose and say, all right, how am I selling just the 3-minute video, right? What am I saying? And more specifically, and the best way to create that intrigue is actually not through saying, but asking questions. And so if you've ever read the book Question-Based Selling, or if you have not read the book Question-Based Selling, there's a lot of different types of books like this, spin selling and the question-based selling, stuff like that. But or even he doesn't talk necessarily about questions specifically, but The Closer's Survival Guide by Grant Cardone. But yeah, I'd probably recommend Question-Based Selling. Probably one of the easier reads. But something is being said, and it's all on how you say it. It's all on how you say it. Where they're just like, no, I don't have time for that. Because if you read into it, are they saying that they don't have 3 minutes, or are they saying that they don't have 3 minutes or that. And there's a difference there. So as you're self-diagnosed, same thing I'd recommend for you. Draw this out of your system. And if you need to go through and be like, all right, so here, this is how I say it. I say this, right? Here, this is how I say it. I say this, as soon as they get there, this is how here I let them do the video, or I let them do the presentation, and then I say this, right? So here's my script, if you will. Write these things out. And so again, this is how you'll know how to diagnose, is if they're all exiting at the same place, then you know what's going on. So great question, Renee. Just curious, what wording do you use to actually put their order in the system after the second exposure? Very good question. Well, let's talk about that, Tamara. Let me just make sure. Doing it remotely. Wait, David. If I'm doing it all remotely. Did you ask a question up here, David? I'm not sure what you're talking about. If I'm doing it all remotely. What's your recommendation for best first exposure? Also for group Zoom exposures. So, David, I've built my business around local, and then I started doing abroad. If you want to follow somebody that built their business that you could look to, that built their business abroad first, I mean, look at somebody like a Scott Rowe, for example, or if you know a guy named Martin Borg, or who else does a lot of remote types of stuff. I think Scott's probably the guy that does most like broad. He's got people in, I would imagine, all 50 states. I would not be the guy to follow in that. Now I'm learning, where I'm coachable, and I was able to spend a lot of time with Mr. Scott Rowe here in the last few weeks, but yes to Zoom. Absolutely, Zoom is my favorite. That's how I've been able to make the most money with doing abroad, because again, that face-to-face, camera on, face-to-face, and being able to share your presentation and things like that. So, Renee, I think I vomited excitement, and that could be like, oh, what's she selling here? Because she's too excited about this. I don't know, but you'll be able to self-diagnose. Thais, do I have scripts? Oh man, do I have scripts? Yes, I do. In fact, I'm building something for us that I'll be rolling out for us. Pete Smallin, who wrote Question-Based Selling? I can only find secrets of question-based selling. I'll have to look that up and post it in the Facebook group. Where do we find the email addresses we can personalize for marketing? Where do we find the email addresses we can personalize? I'm actually not sure what, Mary, maybe rephrase that question for me. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. Okay. So, oh wait, there was a question that I wanted to go back to actually. Just curious, what wording do you use to actually put their order in the system? All right, Tamara, let's talk about this really fast. So this is good. I'll get to my story here in just a second. So what word do I use to put their order in the system? And so I will usually share with them a 3-phase plan. In fact, here, let's do this. Let's see, recent notes, Priya. So here is a one-on-one sit down with a gal that just put in her order. I sit down, I say, all right, 3-phase plan. We're gonna spend 2/3 of your time building knowledge in phase 1, and 1/3 of your time building relationships in phase 1. And we're gonna do that for phase 1 and phase 2. We'll do that. 2/3 of your time is watching classes. 1/3 of your time is making connections. Okay, and I try to keep it somewhat overview like that, and just kind of talk about the benefits. The benefits of education. You're going to learn all this stuff. Benefits of making connections. You're going to hear people's stories, ideas, connections, that kind of stuff. And I say that for phase 1 and phase 2. And as soon as you're done with phase 2, in fact, here, let me show you what being done with phase 2 looks like. So here's a student that just got started late last year, and he has gone through and he's been accountable. All right, did my velocity banking class in August, tax and legal, August, September, October, right? So he finished all of his essentials and finished the classes that we decided were going to be valuable for him in his phase 2 fix and flip track in November, December, January, right? So he's done. I mean, imagine yourself being in these shoes where you are an educated investor, right? Not just one of those people that's going out there and trying to be like, hey, I found a deal. Who wants to be my equity partner? Right? I want to start a Jeff Foxworthy thing where if you get a deal and you walk in and say, hey, who wants to be my equity partner? You might be a newbie. You might be a newbie investor. Love Jeff Foxworthy. But anyway, right? And so the last time we talked, he's like, hey, I actually learned from this that I don't know if I want to flip a house. I think I want to get into some commercial real estate, and I got some really specific things. And so he's going to just go through his commercial stuff now before he says, all right, I'm going to flip where I'll focus a quarter of my time on education. I'll focus 3/4 of my time on making connections, right? It's always about, this is real estate investing. It's all about making a new connection, right? We should be tracking how many new connections we make in a given week. And so let me come back here. So we talk about, all those things, and I say, as soon as we're done with that, so here we are, here I go through the funding options. Sometimes I'll pull out that sheet that's in Helios, but oftentimes I'll just talk about it, right? Because I don't want to go too crazy into detail. I just want brief overviews. All right, here's how most people fund. And I just go down the list of the thing that we can pull up in Helios, the disclosures that talks about fundings. And so I say, existing cash and credit, new lines of credit. Oh, she doesn't have a 401k. She doesn't have cash value life insurance. So I say, all right, here's probably going to be our course of action. And then I say, all right, so what we're going to do is create your account, go after new lines. And I even just added a fun one for her. And I said, I want you to start thinking of a business name. And as soon as we have everything ready to go, then we are going to go and unlock education. And so I just say, all right, here, because again, I know if I come back to here, I know my system of as soon as they get to that point, then we're going to create accounts. We're going to go for our funding plan based on what they choose, because I give them all the options and I give them the overviews, and they say, all right, I think I could do this one and this one. I say, all right, let's make a plan to do that. And I assign homework, and then we're going to unlock education. And I tell them, I say, this is the most important meeting. I tell them this is the most important meeting, because this is when their life is going to change. Because number one, they're going to unlock their classes, which also means they put their cards in. This means that they are going to start watching their classes. They are going to start down that path of becoming an educated investor, not just a do-it-yourselfer that, you learn a couple of things, or you go to a meeting and you hear a couple of stories and you say, cool, I could do that. Now this is we're getting educated here. And so I build the value, say, all right, this is the most important meeting. And so I say those things like in that one-on-one where I list them out. That's all right, here's the next steps. Create account. My usual 3 are just this. Create account. We'll make our funding plan, action steps for funding plan, and then we will unlock education. And this is the important one. This is the one that things are going to change. And I can start assigning the very first class for you. And then, so as soon as I get done saying that, I think it was Tamara that asked this. As soon as I get done saying this, I say, all right, let's do this one right now. And then I go over to my internet and I click this button and I put in their order, just like that. And I've already got it, I mean, pre-pulled up like this, where I go to my bookmarks, my favorites, and it's the very first one right there at the top left, education order, and bam, it's there. You can even put this on your home screen. So like here it is on my home screen, down here in the bottom. I click this and bam, put in an order, just like that. And if you want to see how I do this, last week and the week before, I'd probably recommend the 2 weeks ago one, because I just talk about general order entry. Last week I went into like, let's call it order entry 101 2 weeks ago, order entry 201 last week. And I put that order in. So that's all I say. It is, all right, the next step is going to be create your account. And I say, let's do that right now. And I just start. I don't even look at them. I just look down at my computer, look down at my iPad, look down at my phone, whatever I'm putting the order in. And I just start, because they want to follow somebody that knows the system. They want to follow somebody that knows what they're doing. That's what they're looking for, right? They're not looking for the real estate gods to come down and bestow upon them the success for generations. No, they just want to follow somebody that knows the system, that knows this next step. If they're here, then we do this. If they're here, then we do this. If we're here, we say this. We put their order in, right, and draw it out on a napkin, and say, let's do this. Okay. So great question. Great question. I probably have more comments, questions, stuff like that. Thomas Freese. I'm not sure who. Oh, the author. Thanks, Earl. Mary, I still am not sure exactly what your question is. If you're asking how do I get an email that says like marypierce.com, then just go to Google and search in Google domains. That's going to be your best. Where do we find email addresses that we can personalize for marketing? Oh, emails, maybe emails. Cool. I mean, it sounds like you found you answered your question now. All right. So let me tell you guys a quick story. So let's see what time we got. Oh, 8:47. Nice. Yeah. So I met a gal 2-3 weeks ago, something like that. And actually, maybe it was probably about a month ago. I feel like my process for most people, yes, I've had the people that I meet them on a Saturday and they put their $20,000 in on a Thursday. And I have had those before, a few of them. But most people, to go from very beginning all the way to cards in, if I were to guess, I would say anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks. All right, so you notice that if I'm getting them an exposure a week, then they will have anywhere from 3 to 5 exposures. Now, like the person that put their cards in, that basically came in, or I met them on a Saturday and they put their cards in on a Thursday. I mean, that person still had 5 exposures, but they were just all back to back to back to back to back. And so they still had, the law still applied where they had multiple exposures before cards actually went in. They were just all, that person was very excited. He was prepared, right? He was ready. For a lot of people, you shoot for 1, maybe 2 exposures a week, whether it's live or videos or, a phone call, follow up real fast, just call them up, say, hey, shoot them a text message, a couple of exposures per week. And I see anywhere from that 3 to 5 week mark that they'll go. So I met this gal, I think it was 4 weeks ago. In fact, here, I'll show you. let's find out together. So actually, I shouldn't say I met this gal, but I finally was able to, oh yeah, February. So yeah, not even a month. I met her back in December, and I tried to introduce her. You know, I tried to create that intrigue. It was around the holidays, I'm guessing, because she didn't text me back for like a week or so, and then she finally was like, "Hey, yeah, sorry, I missed you," and then I was gone, and so then I found myself, "Hey, sorry, I missed you. It's been like a week, whatever," and so finally, I was able to have that meeting. So it looks like February 3rd. I think that was the day that it snowed like no tomorrow here. We were gonna try and meet up live, but we ended up doing a Zoom. And then I had her watch a video, so she had her second exposure. And then we did a one-on-one, and we did that in a deal. And then I invited her to come to a live Thursday night training. She brought her husband there. Whoops. And then we met one-on-one again. So now we're at 2 one-on-ones. And then we're meeting again tonight. She's already put her credit cards in. She put her full 20,000. Well, actually, if you watched my class, or if you watched my last week's training on creative order entry, creative order entry 201, basically, I did that one where I said to her, because she's excited. She's excited. I'm going to give you guys like the catch here in just a second. But if I go back to our text messages, let's see, Mandy. There it is. There she is. So if I go back to our text messages, I don't want to share that. Oh, come on. Here it is. Oh, so here's how I set it for getting her cards in the system. She says, okay, so she's excited, right? So she texts me on a Friday, order's already in, like she's signed. And so we're talking back and forth. I'm just like, man, she's excited. And so I text back right here. I say, also, I can actually unlock education in stages, like a week apart. If we do 2,000 now, I can have you start going through stuff as soon as today. And the other 18,000 doesn't need to be in for, I don't know, 10 days or so. Want to do that real quick? And she's like, yes, let's do that. So we put her cards in Friday, $2,000. She unlocked education. And here, let me go back to the calendar actually. So she put in education on Friday, and then, or sorry, just essentials on Friday. And then last night she said, all right, let's run the other 18. And so she's unlocked her full combo. And then we're going to meet up again. Like I say, the most important meeting is that unlocked goal setting session where we sit down and we start picking classes. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to watch this. And so we create their curriculum. And this is what alters the course of the rest of their lives, because now they're focusing on becoming an educated investor. And you look at all the same things. If I pull up her one-on-one sheet, it would be exactly the same as the other one I just showed you. The 3-phase plan. Here's some funding options. If you want to do it like this, then I'll connect you here. If you want to do it like this, then we'll connect you here. And she actually already had a bunch of 0% credit cards, because let me tell you the story. Let me tell you the story about she goes by Mandy. So I'm gonna say Mandy. So I found out, I'm trying to remember how long it was in the system, but either way, I found out that Mandy had just barely a few months ago signed up for Rich Dad, Poor Dad. She went to all their meetings. She went to their sales pitches. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Education. And so she signed up. She paid them, and this is just a few months ago. She paid them $51,000 to be a part of their education program and get a one-on-one mentor for 4 days. 4 days. The one-on-one mentor flew out for 4 days. They went down to the courthouse, and they basically talked about in the one-on-one mentorship, they basically talked about the things that are in Chris Albin's class in our essentials class, in our essentials course. One class. And yeah, they gave her some online stuff, and she can go to some live stuff and some house tours and things like that, but they'll only let her do it for 2 years. And so when we first met, you can imagine that it would be easy to say, oh, she's probably not going to be interested. She just spent $51,000 for this other real estate program. But here's the thing. I have an affirmation that I tell myself every day. I've changed it over the years, but I have an affirmation that I attract people that are ready and waiting for what Renatus has. I attract people who are looking for what we have here. I tell myself that every day, right? And if you want to go to the specifics, I did a post in our Facebook group a little while ago that I actually picked up a really cool way to word it from Mr. Zach Ullman. But I tell myself that. And so even though she spent the $51,000, I still tell myself, you know what? She wants what we have. Because this is what's going to change her life. Not just some gal that flies out from who knows where, does not invest in real estate in our local area, and spends 4 days with her to make her feel all, excited and pumped up and whatever. No, like this is where she is going to rubber meets the road. And you know what she's told me? After spending this and just spending another 20, so I'm not a head math guy, but let's 50, so it's basically $71,000. She told me, she said, you know what? I'm basically just going to say that that was the path that I needed to go to be led to Renatus. Because had I not done that when I first saw Renatus, I probably wouldn't have bought. I probably wouldn't have seen it. But because I saw this, or what not to do, and she's got that buyer's remorse, she said, this looked like a drop in the bucket. And she's still, literally, she did this just months ago, right? I'm not sure who I've got off of mute here. But, yeah, let's do this.
Daine, can I ask you a question?
Oh, yes, go right ahead.
Okay, it's Sandra down in Florida. I have a gentleman who came out a couple of times. He's all excited. And I asked him what he wanted. I'm sorry.
Here, Bill.
Daine, can you find out who's
you.
on mute?
I got
Because
you.
it's hard to hear.
Yeah. It was Bill Prady. I'll tease him later. Go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you. You mentioned multiple exposures, and so I called him and asked him to come back to the meeting for the third time, even though he says he wants to sign up with Essentials, and he went through funding and he got approved by UGA. And so right now he's financially strapped, and he said to get back to him in 3 or 4 weeks. Now, you had said multiple exposures, and I'm thinking, should I be sending him some videos to keep him in touch? He says, there's no sense in me coming back to the meeting to hear the same presentation again. I already understand what I want to do. So I'm trying to figure out without being too pushy, and I certainly don't think I can call him and say, let me put your information in the computer and set up an account, and when you tell me it's ready, we'll run your credit card. So I have to figure out what to do in the meantime, so he doesn't feel that I'm shoving it down his throat.
Yeah. Now notice, this is cool. This is really cool, because it sounds like you've got some aha moments going on, and you're asking your subconscious mind, or inside of your mind, you're asking yourself, how can I do this in this situation? And I'm going to tell you right now that just the fact that you are spending energy to ask yourself how. I mean, this, you know, when they talk about people that are the great thinkers, you know, the people that are the great creators, the very thing that's going on in your mind right now, that is what's going to make you wealthy. When you
From
sit
your
and
mouth
you
to
think about
God's
people
ears,
and
from your mouth to God's ears, because I'm a Landmark graduate and he's in Landmark also. And so I'm
cool.
trying to be in his space and try to think of where he's coming from. Because a lot of times people say,
Good.
oh, I don't have the money, I don't have the money. And it's usually not true. But in his case,
Yep.
I know the programs he signed up for and I know his financial commitments, and I don't want him to really, yeah. So thank you for that, because I've been in for over a year. I have not gotten one single person in. And I kept saying, I'm going to be a 5-star before nationals. I'm going to be a 5-star before nationals. And here I am with my first potential teammate who I would be giving away. And I don't want to scare him or ruin it.
Now notice what you just said there, and I hope you're okay if I and everybody else, you know, I hope you guys are okay if I you know, give you a little bit of mentoring here really fast.
Please. And those were
But
negative
notice what you
words,
said.
and I shouldn't have used those words. You're right. I should not.
Yeah, you know
have
where I'm going,
used,
right?
that was negative,
So
and I take it back. I'm rescinding those words.
change,
Woo!
yeah. All right. And so in fact, instead of me telling you what to say, how about you come up with what you are going to say? Instead of telling me that, oh, I've been in a year, I haven't put any.
Okay, well, I could call him and, well, he said to call in 3 weeks, so I put it on my calendar. So in a couple of weeks, I could just call and say, hi, I was thinking about you and I just wanted to see how everything's going. I'm going to pop a little video to you to just keep it fresh in your mind. We've got this great video that shows our owner of our company going all over the country with fabulous investors. And I just want to keep you excited about what's in store for you.
Yes, that's great. That's great. What I'm getting at here is, what are you going to say on the inside of your own head to yourself? And if you're okay, if I give you something here,
please,
instead of saying
please,
like, I've been in a year, I haven't put in a single stuff, say, start telling yourself, I am putting in my first order. Because if it's never happened for you, it's because you tell yourself that. I've never put in an order. No, stop saying that. I am putting in my first order. Imagine yourself doing that. Because honestly, do you know how? Do you know how to put in an order?
I'm going to go back and watch the last two Wednesdays and see what you just said, because I heard you say you did that. And so now it's time.
And
for
now,
me to,
and once you have that education, yes. Once you have that education, and do the same thing that I did in the training, you know, put in an order that's just John Doe or whatever, you know. Corporate might be like, hey, but you'll be like, I'm just learning. Because I mean, I actually put in 2 orders just to do those couple of trainings, and you know, those orders are never going to get funded, but you know, it's for training. It's so that you know that system. So I'm going to say this. So now we're talking about what you're going to say in your head. And then you talked about what you're going to say to him. Just remember that when the order goes in, their emotion or their excitement needs to be up here. So I'm not sure if you can see my screen here, but so right now, if he hasn't been to a meeting, like he's down here, where he's like,
no,
you know,
he came to 2 meetings.
He's excited.
He
So he came to a couple meetings,
and he came back to Velocity Banking.
Okay. So he saw that and he came back and he's excited, and he's told you. And so in this moment where he's at a high, he's like, yeah, I want to be essentials. I want to do this. I want to do this. Okay. And he's gone home. I can tell you right now that it's very unlikely that you could call him up and just over the phone be like, hey, let's put your order in, right? Because that moment, that window has passed. So you got to get him back. You got to get him back to something. And usually my favorite thing to say is like, hey, I want to introduce you to somebody. You know, just pick somebody that's down there. You know, don't say I want to introduce you to a meeting, because he's going to give you the same response that he gave you. I mean, there's a reason he said that. Oh, she just wants me to come to another meeting. I've been to the meeting. But what he hasn't done is met somebody. All right, so you know who this person is, you know, and they'll come to your mind. This person will come to your mind, and that you look up to, that you like, that they might jive with, and you call this person back and say, hey, I actually have somebody I want you to meet. So you come down, you know, on Thursday, you know, I've got something that you can go to, but I want you to meet this person. And you get them back down to another meeting, you know, and yeah, show them something different. You know, don't make them sit through the same thing again. But then afterwards, you say, cool, like, you know, and the same things that you said. You talk about, you know, hey, you mentioned that you wanted to do this, and be like, cool. The next steps are going to be, we can actually create that account, and then we can figure out, you know, do you already know how you're going to fund it? How you're going to fund that today? And then you say, cool, like, so again, like the same steps. Step 1, create account. Step 2, do we know how we're going to fund it? Step 3, let's unlock your education. And you could start watching. And in fact, I'm going to send you a link to your very first class that I think you should watch.
Okay.
And you'll know which one that is, especially if you've watched the classes yourself. Wink, wink, wink. If you watch the classes yourself, then you're going to know which ones that are going to pique his interest the most.
Okay.
And so you say, yeah, I'm going to, you know, so like for Mandy that I just told the story of, I texted her the link to Mark Kohler's class, and she couldn't unlock it. I did this on purpose, right? I sent her the link and said, hey, this is the first class I want you to watch. And if she goes to that, it's going to say, oh, you got to unlock your education first. I do this on purpose. Okay. And so when she put in that 2000, then Mark Kohler's class unlocked. And she started watching it over the weekend. And then we're meeting, and then she called me on Tuesday and said, hey, I need the rest of it. Let's do this.
Got it.
And she put in her other 18,000 on Tuesday. So yeah, I know we're over time. So,
but you're worth every minute. You're worth every minute.
Cool.
Thank you.
And
so
you know what to do. You know what to
much.
say to yourself. You know what to say to him. So report back next week. All right.
Okay.
Let me just check comments here. Just check comments. Yeah. Thank you, Pete. Great. Yeah. Invite him to a Super Saturday. Diana, we have an individual that really wants to do it, but he can't find funding anywhere. Should we have him continue? Should we continue inviting him? I wish I had more time to answer this, Diana. Diana, ask this question next week. Ask this question next week, and we'll go over it, because I gotta get to other meetings. But awesome. Thank you all. Love you all. Have a great rest of your Wednesday and your week. I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Dave.